If you want to eat your cheesy pasta bake straight away, preheat your oven to 180 degrees C or 160 degrees fan. Hello, welcome to Fabulous Food. Today we're going to be making a cheesy pasta bake. So the first thing that we need to do is half fill a large saucepan with water from the tap and then put it on to boil. So I'll show you, here's my saucepan. I've half filled it and I'm going to put it on high because I want the water to come up to the boil. And then while that's happening, I'm going to carry on preparing everything else. So we're going to weigh our pasta. We want 250 grams of pasta. So bowl on the scales, set the scales to 0 and then weigh out 250 grams of pasta. So you can see that I'm using wholemeal pasta, which is the healthier option, but you could use white pasta if you prefer. So in order to put my pasta safely into the boiling water, I'm going to tip it into my colander, and then I'm going to hold my colander with a nice straight arm, it's a bit hard to show you on here, and tip it into the saucepan. So my water's boiling now, you can see there are lots and lots of bubbles, so it's time to add the pasta. So I've got a nice straight arm, I'm resting the colander on the edge of the saucepan, and then in one swift movement I'm going to tip my pasta in. The water hasn't splashed up to burn me. So when I put the pasta back into the pan, it took some of the heat out of the water. So I've put the pan back on a high heat and it's come up to the boil. And now I'm going to turn it down to a medium heat and I'm going to set my timer for the amount of minutes it says on my particular packet of pasta. So for me that's 10 minutes and you must check your pasta to see how long it needs to cook. Give it a gentle stir just to stop the pasta cooking. And now we're going to get on with chopping the onion. So I've got my onion ready to chop. I'm going to hold it with my pincer grip to cut the top off. I'm going to hold that down to start peeling it and then I'm going to cut off the root. Hold it down and that will help peel it a little bit more. And now get rid of all the brown peel or skin and any other layers that don't look very nice. Pop those bits away so they don't end up in your product. So bridge grip over our onion, knife through the middle. Just rock the knife down gently to cut through the onion. Put the flat side of the onion on the board and a bridge over and then come through the onion about 4 or 5 times depending on the size of your onion, and if you can hold it together like I have and then come across here, moving your fingers back as you move the knife across, and that will dice your onion very quickly, but that is quite tricky. So I'll show you again. You can come across 4 or 5 times and then if you haven't managed to hold your onion together, you can then come across and just chop up each individual slice of onion. It just takes a little bit longer, but the main thing is to keep your fingers safe and away from the knife. So you can see my pincer grip's holding the onion and I'm just slicing through like that. So that's my onion chopped up. I'm going to get myself a little frying pan or a saucepan, put some oil in the bottom. You don't need to measure it, just pop a little bit of oil in. Add your onion before the oil gets hot in case it splashes you. And then I'm going to put that on a medium heat just to fry the onions. So you can hear that my onions are sizzling. I put them on a high heat to start with to get some heat into the pan. And now I'm going to turn the heat down to a medium to low heat and just leave the onions to cook gently while I grate my cheese. So this recipe uses 2 kinds of cheese. It uses mozzarella cheese and a parmesan cheese. So the mozzarella cheese comes in a packet with some water to store it safely. So to use your mozzarella, you snip the corner off of the packet and then I'm going to take it over to the sink and I'm going to hold on to the mozzarella ball in the middle of that packet and I'm going to drain the water down the sink and then we'll just have the mozzarella cheese left in the packet. Now if we cut the packet open, we can see there's the mozzarella. You don't need to grate the mozzarella, you can just pull it apart. If you grate it, you'll end up with a bit of a sticky mess. So just pull it apart into little cubes or little pieces like that. So that's my mozzarella, and now I'm going to grate some parmesan. And the recipe says 2 tablespoons of parmesan, and that's probably about 30 grams. So I'm just going to grate some and then we'll have a look and see what it looks like. So use the large hole on the grater. Keep your fingers well out of the way. So remember, you can put your fingers inside the grater to pull the cheese down, but you mustn't run your fingers down the sharp blade on the outside. And there's my parmesan cheese pile. So they're ready to use later on. So that's the timer going off for my pasta. Just switch it off. So I've got my colander back. I'm going to take my colander over and I'm going to place it in the sink, and then I'm going to pour the pasta and the boiling water into the colander so that the boiling water drains away down the sink, and I'm just left with my pasta. So I've got my drained pasta in my colander. I'm going to tip it back into my saucepan so I can mix everything together now. I've got my pasta in my saucepan. I'm going to get my onions that have fried nicely and scrape those into the pan with the pasta. Just give it a little mix to combine the two. And I'm going to take my can of chopped tomatoes and tip those in. Give it a tap, make sure you get all the tomato out. And I want 1 teaspoon of mixed herbs. So your mixed herbs will probably come in a much smaller pot. Add that. And then we're going to add the parmesan cheese, but not the mozzarella. That's going to go on the top at the end. And now it's time to give everything a good mix together. And at this stage we can season it as well. So just a tiny bit of salt, because salt's not very good for us. And also there's a lot of salt in cheese. So a little bit of salt and as much ground black pepper as you like. And as I always say, Mrs. Halloran loves black pepper, so she would encourage you to put lots in. Give it a nice gentle mix now, so round the edge of the pan and into the middle to stop it all flying out of the pan and onto your worktop. And then when you're happy that it's mixed, we're going to put it into the container that we're going to cook it in. So you bring a container into school. It needs to be an oven-proof container, not a plastic one. Tip your pasta in like that. Make sure you get it all out of the pan. You don't want to waste any. Then just spread it in the dish until it's nice and even, but don't pat it down too much. Mrs. Halloran doesn't like patted down food. And the last thing we need to do is to get our mozzarella cheese and just pop it all over the top, and that will melt and become all lovely and gooey and taste delicious. So if you're making this at school, we'd get to this stage and then we'd put it in the fridge, and you'd come and pick it up at the end of the day and take it home and put it in your ovens at home. If you're making it at home from scratch, you can put it in the oven now. So the oven should be on 180 degrees C or 160 degrees if you've got a fan oven, and it will need to bake for 20 to 30 minutes. It needs to be hot throughout and golden brown on top. So I hope you have a go at making cheesy pasta bake at home and you really enjoy it, and we look forward to seeing some pictures on the Google Classroom. Bye bye.